Is it welcoming? Do you look smart? Do you look like you're good at what you do? Do you look like someone they want to spend the time reading the next little blurb that's probably only 3 sentences underneath their chin? Getting to figure out what is the unique thing, the differentiator of each client that comes into my studio to figure out how to tell their story to make sure that their authenticity is represented is the thing, right?
Welcome to Your Intended Message, the perfect place for leaders and promising professionals who want to convey the intended message for greater success. Every week, we interview experts who address the challenges and best practices to deliver your message effectively. That might be one-to-one, one-to-few, or one-to-many. And perhaps the most important conversation, one-to-self. I'm your host, George Torok. My guest today is Maia Rosenfeld. Maia has been a headshot photographer in Chicago, Los Angeles, and New York for 28 years. Some of her corporate clients include, perhaps you've heard of these people, BMW, JP Morgan Chase, Salesforce, GE Healthcare, and the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And 3, Maia has never met a stranger. Now, Maia, I find that last claim interesting. Tell us about that. What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is I, for better or for worse, am an incurable optimist, and I just love meeting people. And I felt desperately unincluded in high school, and so my whole kind of life view is predicated on making sure that everybody feels welcome, everybody feels invited. And so when I meet people, I immediately just assume they are wonderful people and I want to hear their story. And I usually get really excited about their story. And then I want to tell their story, or I want to be able to convey their story through photography or whatever it is that it is. But I kind of fall in love with every one of my clients and every one of the people that I meet until they prove me otherwise, which usually takes 13 years. So, that's it. I just want to create a space where everybody feels like you belong. And so people go from I've never met you before to not a stranger in a nanosecond.
And so I imagine as a photographer that it's not only do you need the skills of photography and understanding how to frame a photo, but more importantly, I believe you just revealed the secret is about wanting to tell people's stories.
Yeah. Listen, it's so interesting because I think some of your listeners might be like, the headshots, that seems like an odd match for your intended message podcast. But literally everything I do my playbook is exactly your playbook. Like when you say things like, every person that you meet is going to ask the question, why should I listen to this person, right? Well, if you back it up before you even get to your messaging, we now live in a day and age where everybody can go to LinkedIn and take a look at your photo or put your name in the internet and search who you are. And they're going to make that decision very possibly based on what's up there, what your photograph is. Is it welcoming? Do you look smart? Do you look like you're good at what you do? Do you look like someone they want to spend the time reading the next little blurb that's probably only 3 sentences underneath their chin? So, getting to figure out what is the unique thing, the differentiator of each client that comes into my studio to figure out how to tell their story to make sure that their authenticity is represented is the thing, right? And that's why I kind of have to fall in love with every one of my clients so that I can be their biggest advocate on the other side of the camera and help them actualize that too. Give them a safe space where they feel like I can, be authentically and unapologetically myself in this session, which is really hard. Having your photographs taken is really difficult. It's a very vulnerable experience. And so you want to create as little margin for error as possible. And I tell all my clients, like, there's no way to screw this up. You literally can't screw this up. Everything that you do today will be correct. Because if you're doing it, then I'm capturing you.
And a lot of people are uncomfortable getting their photo taken, and because of that, they tend to make silly faces or take uncomfortable poses, and they look silly because they unconsciously sabotage themselves.
Right.
How do you stop them from doing that?
So what I tell my clients, and I tell all my clients this, and I started my business with actors. And although one might think that actors have no problem, they're on camera all the time. Like the one class actors do not have is stare directly into the camera and be yourself, unless you're like going into journalism, right? Telejournalism. So it's equally as difficult for them. So what I tell people is that my job is to take the three-dimensional you and successfully translate you into a two-dimensional medium, which means I'm not particularly interested in taking photographs of what you look like. Lucky for me, you already look like what you look like. Thank you very much. I'm interested in taking photos of who you are, right? So that's about capturing the accidents and capturing the moments of honest response. How do we do that in a completely controlled environment? So I've come up with a game that they do, which is about I throw a word out at them, and they just repeat that word inside their brain. They just have to think it. So if I say to you, just with your eyes, say the word power. If you literally just think the word power, you're done. You don't have to give me what you think a powerful look is. You don't have to define power. You don't have to think of a time you once felt powerful. Literally, I say power, you say power. I say cat, you say cat. And why does it work? It works because it keeps George inside the building that is George, where people tend to derail themselves in photos. Any photo, family photo, picture it out with your friends, is the second the camera comes up, everyone tends to leave the building, right? We're in a big group of people. We say cheese. We don't know how long it's taking. We don't know how many they're taking. Our faces kind of freeze. We don't know if it's the other camera. Are they using a flash? We get that photo back and we hate how we look, right? You're not in that photo. You left at least 15 seconds ago, right? So that is one of the places that we derail ourselves and we start to hate how we look. Now, we live in a world in this selfie culture where you can watch yourself in the photo, right? Which is almost even worse of a problem. It makes you even more self-conscious, right? So I'm interested in getting people to pay attention to not to the product of it, but to the process of it, right? So, I, of course, look at every photo of mine and say, oh, I know how to fix this picture. I'm just going to fix the 3 things about my face that I hate. And then I'm going to love the picture. And like, how arrogant of me to think anyone's looking at my face this long. But I have like tiny eyes, a long nose, 94 chins. So in every photograph ever, I do this, which your listeners can't see, but I look like an idiot. And which only kind of compounds how terrible the photograph is, right? So my whole goal is to get people as unself-conscious as possible, but also to keep them cognitively processing information, because in order to do so, they have to stay home inside their body. So that's kind of the theory behind, and it works with everyone. I do it with my corporate clients. I do it with my actor clients. I do it when coaching on camera interviews for like C-suite interviews when I do those kind of things. And it's the same thing. It's get yourself out of your own head. And that's my job, so that you can be yourself and we can kind of tell the true story of who you are instead of the one that you think that the world needs to see so that you seem perfect. As you say, imperfect, right? What's the thing that you say about like, you go for imperfection, there's something worth like. If you go for perfection, you'll always fail. There is no perfection. What you want to be is you want to be real. You want to be effective. Right. And then, I think once you are authentically yourself and you are honest about what you are selling or who you are, you're much more compelling, right? You talk about all the time. What was it? The thing that you said that I thought was so. Your unintended message is often even more important than your intended message, right? Like, and and I'm assuming, again, as a communication specialist, and this is more of a question than a statement, that like you are giving your clients all the time recommendations on like, you may not think about this, but this will affect how you come off to an audience full of people. Like, what are some of the things that you tell people are not no-nos, I guess, but like will adversely affect their messaging? And you're right that the audience views the whole picture. And you might be, for example, some people, people might say to me, well, George, I said the right words. Well, yeah, you said, I'm really excited to be here. But you didn't look excited, or this is an exciting project, and we got to. No, you didn't sound it, and we remember what we tend. And here's where photography comes in. We tend, when there's a disconnect from what we hear to what we see, we tend to give more weight to what we see, because that's how we survived. We survived based on what we see, where there's danger, where there's food, where there's companionship. The first thing we recognize is we use our sight. And then, and by the way, our language, I believe we've only been, as a species, we've only been talking for, I'm not sure if it's how many,
It hasn't even been a million years. It's been a few 100,000 years that we've had speech. But before that, we survived only with visual and grunts.
Yeah. And nonverbal communication is huge, right? I was talking to a client yesterday and she was saying that she was traveling a country. She didn't speak the language, but because in the way in which we've kind of, are able to transmit what we mean with our facial expressions and whatnot, it didn't matter what the words are. She totally understood what he meant and got the information she needed from the interaction. And so the same is true, like when I'm taking you right? Like when you're just a two-dimensional thing. And one of the things too that really struck me about what you say is whether we listen to your message or not is whether we believe you, right? So the consistency of what you're saying, I'm really excited versus like, I'm really excited, right? Like I don't believe the first guy, but I believe the second guy is even more true when you have less tools at your fingertips. You are just a static two-dimensional image. And how do you get people to believe you? And which is also part of the reason why a lot of C-suite is now turning to video, right? If you can have the more information, I feel like we live in a world now where, especially post-pandemic, where nobody wants to have to spend the time to really interface, right? We want to go to your LinkedIn page. We want to see, oh, they look nice. I think I like them. And like, we're going to make a decision based on that, whether or not we're going to do business with you, which is harrowing because then you're putting a lot of pressure on your photo too. But I think the use of video has been really helpful. I know that I was looking for, a new doctor. And I went to the Northwestern Medical website and they had videos of all the doctors being interviewed. And I thought, oh, this is fantastic. And I was like watching all the videos to figure out like, do I think this doctor will fat shame me? No, right? Like I was able to, but I didn't want to go in and meet them and interview them and spend the time. That takes a lot of time. I have to leave my house. I got to put on pants. I got to put on shoes. There's all these things that nobody is in the habit of doing anymore. Everybody wants to be able to do it from the comfort of their own home because they got so used to it during the pandemic. And so, when you are crafting your brand, you want to make sure that your headshot is consistent, right? There's like some metric it used to be that it would be 7 times that you would have to see something before it would actually register and you would take action. Now, with all of the social media and all of the kind of stuff that's coming, it's like 35 times before somebody will register. So you want to make sure that if they see your picture, it is consistent with your branding. It reminds you of your branding so that it like at least goes into the mathematical equation of 35 times. You know what I mean? You want to save yourself that you don't want to waste that exposure opportunity. And the different things that your photo will say, like, again, like you talk about like prejudgment. I feel like there's a Malcolm Gladwell book that talks about like within 10 seconds, we make some sort of snap judgment about everybody. And it is prejudgment, but not prejudice. Like he makes a delineation that it's like, you're right. You're like basic, biological imperative to survive, right? Like, and part of those things that we do is we see somebody's photo. And if it's not well lit and you've cut out your partner and you're clearly at a wedding because you're like, but I looked so good that night. On LinkedIn, I'm going to think that either you're not professional or you're not good enough at your job that you had the $200 to get yourself a professional photograph, or that your company is either not legit or is not successful enough to bring a professional photographer in to make sure that there is a consistency of branding on their website that kind of gives you that consumer confidence that will lead to a click. One of my best friends came to me and she's like, oh, I have a new headshot. I'm with a company you've heard of. And you may be using one of their products right now, for all I know. It was such a profoundly terrible, we don't care headshot. I was shocked. And I think that, again, I think a lot of companies, especially with the economy being wacky right now, look at it as a nice to have as opposed to a need to have. But if it is the gateway to whether or not you are going to decide to believe them or want to hear their intended message, people are going to have to start, I think, looking at it as a really helpful tool if you use it the right way.
Maya, give us a couple of guidelines for how to have an effective LinkedIn photo, for example.
So, it's really interesting. I started getting a lot of clients emailing me that you can do like an AI headshot now, right? And everyone's like, are you going to go out of business? And I was like, no, I'm very diversified. I'm kind of a house of brands. I do video messaging. I do actor headshots. I do all sorts of stuff. I wasn't terribly worried about it. And what ended up happening was people looked too good. They looked too manufactured, and people started being worried that those were bots because there's so many phishing scams. There's so many like trying to get your information, that if you use those AI headshots, people were like, that's not a real person, and then wouldn't click on you, right? So there's like a balance of, and when you talk about, perfection is imperfection. You want it to be well lit. You want them to be able to see you. You want to have like, there are a couple schools of thought. Some people like the kind of gray, clean corporate thunder gray background. Some people like to have that blurry and amorphous. I'm in my very fancy office, right? To help raise that kind of consumer confidence. Both are fine so long as, your face is what the focus is. And at the end of the day, and again, every company is different, right? Again, you're branding even with your photos. So I have one company that's consultants, and they want to look like they're creating a welcoming, open space. They want to look friendly. They usually are smiling in their photos, to let people, I got your back. I'm a safe person to work with. Meanwhile, at a company that were investment bankers and their minimum investment was $50 million. And this was like 15 years ago. So that was like even more money. And they were like, we do not want to look nice. We want to look mean. We want you to, like, we do not want to look friendly. And all of their photos looked like the opening of like a gong gong, like Law and Order, right? Because they wanted to let people know that they were serious. And they were like, we're going to be serious with that much money that you're giving them. So, you want to think about who your audience is always, right? First question, you always want to ask anybody ever. And then what are they going to respond to? So with that in mind, again, it's about capturing the accidents, right? That moment where they're authentically and unapologetically themselves is the one that we relate to, because then we see something in ourselves in them, right? It's that great Maya Angelou quote, which is like, people don't remember what you said. They don't remember what you did. They remember how you made them feel. And if you make me feel safe and you make me feel like, oh, I see that bit of imperfection or that bit of being a human in that photo. I'm human. We have so much in common, right? Again, in that 10-second judgment period, we're feeling like this person will get me. I had a company, they hired a new head of a department and they wanted me to meet with her. And I went and looked at her LinkedIn photo and I was like, oh no, like, oh, she's going to be a bum. Like just her photo, I was just like, it's just really static and staged. She looked like a Karen. And then because everybody does this, I went and looked her up on Facebook and was like, oh my God, she looks amazing. Like running around with her kids, totally, unstaged, unposed, candid photos, and had this just energy and aura of this lovely person. And I'm like, capture that. Don't worry about your hair being perfect. We'll fix that in post. Nothing is real. I can put the Eiffel Tower behind you, right? Like, you don't want to use AI for bad, but like, if you're worried about your hair, be worried about your hair. Be worried about what you are offering the people that are looking at your photos.
When people are shooting video, how can they talk to the camera and not look just uncomfortable?
There's a bunch of different, again, every person is different. I have to use a different tool for every job, right? There's no baseline. I once had a client come to me. She was like a senior in college. It was her first headshot. She was like super, super stressed out. And she wouldn't let go of like the face she had practiced in the mirror. And I literally was like, oh no. And I shot 2,000 headshots of her and gave her 200 of when she accidentally let herself go. And she called me because I was like, I do not want this person walking out of her thinking that they are not beautiful. This girl is beautiful. Thinking that she's beautiful and deserves a space in this world. And she called me and she's like, these are the best photos anyone, like, she doesn't need to know I took 2,000 photos. So the same thing is true for video, right? Whatever tool we need for the job. I had somebody once, first of all, interviewing them sometimes is easier when you're like slightly looking off camera and you're looking at me so that you're interacting with a real person. It's harder to do the weird stayed thing if you're actually looking in someone's eyes and having a conversation with them because they immediately are like, what's the matter with you? I did have somebody once who was so frozen up on camera that I just let the camera roll, right? Because again, those accidents are the best moments. And I started the video with her like laughing at something I said. So you immediately were like, oh, she's a real person that laughs at things. Look at how with reckless abandon she laughs. I do that. And I just made her continuously repeat the first statement, which was her name. What is your name? And she would say, let's say Jane Doe. She'd be like, Jane Doe. And I was like, what is your name? And she's like, Jane Doe. And I was like, what is your name? And she's like, Jane Doe. Until it became so ridiculous that she was laughing and relaxed. And once we got to that place, we were able to start having more of a relaxed conversation. But that's just one example. Some people are great on camera. Some people kind of get freaked out and you do different things to kind of figure out, you want to meet them where they are and figure out how to bring out the best in them and tell their story. And usually that's just about getting them to talk about the thing that they're excited about, right? Like passion is exciting. Passion is, confidence is exciting. Confidence is you're so immersed in that thing that you love and you do so well that you stop paying attention to all the other things. The only 2 times I ever got asked, I mean, I don't get asked out a lot. I'm married now, but I remember there were 2 times I got asked out by clients and I'm like, no makeup, hair is a mess, like slouchy, not, and I guess I was so plugged into what I was doing. These 2 guys were like, we should go have a drink. And I was like, really? Like the rest of the time I'm trying to like game it and put on the most amount of makeup and do my hair and show up in the cute heels. And I'm in sweatpants, but because I am kind of unsubconsciously doing the thing I love, that's incredibly attractive. And if you can accomplish that through photo or through video, that really reads. We get it. We get that you're excited. It makes us excited. I want to work with them. They're super excited about this.
And so instead of saying something silly like cheese, if you get them to think about or talk about what they're passionate about, or get them to laugh by repeating their name so many times that they suddenly realize how silly it is and they let go of the tension.
Yes. Yeah. It is. It is about getting them to a place where they feel a lot of it's safety, right? Like everyone's so afraid of looking foolish and everyone's thinking it. So it's not just you. Everyone is afraid of looking foolish. I had a friend who, her mother was unembarrassable. When she was a teenager, she was like, Mom. And she's like, Jeannie, no one is paying attention to you. No one is paying attention to you because everyone is so obsessively paying attention to themselves and making sure they don't come off as an idiot she was like, I can literally take my bra off in the middle of Wilshire Boulevard and no one will notice. And she did, and no one noticed, right? Because everyone's like walking by cars and checking themselves out at their own reflection in a car window. Does that mean that they're narcissists? No, it means that they're ragingly insecure and they just want to make sure that they look okay to the rest of the world so that they fit in or they deserve to take up space. I'm here to create a space where like, yes, you deserve to take up space. Let's tell your story. Let's tell people why you're as wonderful as you are.
For people who'd like to know more about Maia, you can and her service as far as taking headshots and video, they can check you out at the website, which is mrpcreative.com, and you can find that link in the description below. Maia, as we prepare to wrap up, if you could offer 1, 2, or 3 tips of advice to how to get more comfortable with having their photos taking, with appearing on video, what might be that 1, 2, or 3 pieces of advice you would offer?
All right. So for camera, I will say that the exercise of thinking a word, and this, by the way, works all the time. Like I tried this at the bar because I always hate all the photos of me at the bar. And someone's like, we're taking a picture. And I just thought in my head, Cap'n Crunch cereal. Captain Crunch cereal, Captain Crunch cereal. And all of a sudden the photo looked great because I was clearly not focused on how do I make myself look thinner? And I was focused on Captain Crunch cereal. By the way, those are probably mutually exclusive, Captain Crunch cereal and me looking thinner. And then for video, this was great advice somebody gave me when I did stand up real briefly in Los Angeles. And she said, pretend you're telling me. And what I mean by that is pick somebody that you know really well in your life. Might pick my husband. You might pick your best friend. You can pick your dog and tell the jokes to them. Even though they know the story, especially because they already know the story, you're not going to do it in a performative, like, don't you guys hate how at Starbucks? It becomes much more, you feel like people are speaking directly to you when I say to my husband, because like, if I talk to my husband like that, he'd be like, what's the matter with you? He's from Brooklyn. What's the matter with you? But if you start like, okay, so you know how they do that thing at Starbucks where they write your name on the cup? All of a sudden people are drawn in because they feel like you're speaking just to them. And it's on a very personal one-to-one level. It doesn't have to be on a very, very big level. And I think that if you can think of presenting any and all information in that way of like, I'm going to tell you this thing, it drops you into a lower tone. So you sound more believable. Then this kind of thing kind of seems performative. Welcome to my TED Talk, right? But I actually think that that's one of the things that makes Taylor Swift so successful. And everybody feels like, I'm kind of been fascinated by her because I knew she existed, but I was like, really started paying attention when she broke Ticketmaster. I was like, who is this person? And how did she do that? And I think that part of it is everyone feels like she's talking directly to them because she drops her tone. There's nothing performative about it. And she's like, oh my God, I'm a gay 13. She's like, oh my God, I'm so tired. I'm at gate 1B. You know what I mean? Like there's something about that I think really is effective and really works and is kind of a good tip in terms of dropping into that. Pretend you're telling your partner the story. And then all of a sudden you realize there's a bunch of stuff you can't get away with your partner, which by the way, you can't get away with an audience either.
Powerful, practical tips from Maia, and reminding you that don't say cheese, think Captain Crunch.
It destroys the roof of your mouth, but I can't stop eating it.
If you like what you heard, tell your friends and post your 5-star review on Apple Podcasts because that helps more listeners find us. Come back every week for more practical insights to help you deliver your intended message. I'm your host, George Torok.